Greetings. My name is Alex Salzman. I'm a founding member of the Visionary Network. I'm pleased to be here with Mary Furlong and Mika Newton, and two esteemed members that we've formed a collaboration. And true to the Visionary brand, we are recommending and curating meaningful opportunities, and also those opportunities that are truly in demand in the Visionary Network. XCures, which Mika is CEO, and you'll hear from him shortly, represents the intersection of technology and also a very pressing cause and a novel solution with a venture that has tremendous momentum. Mary, one of the early founding members of the Visionary Network and an access advisory partner, represents somebody who has brought together and has built over decades a trust network of relationships that Visionary is able to enter into to curate an opportunity like XCures and build capacity through trusted relationships into a venture across our network of networks. So the purpose of this video is just kind of informally to get to know these two individuals, get the real inner workings of what the Longevity Summit is doing with XCures, how you can be involved, and Visionary is here to curate quality, arrange meetings so that your agenda matches the agenda of these two members. So without further ado, Mary, I'll pass it to you to guide us into the conversation.
Yes, so this is August 2020, and we are in the summer of our Longevity Venture Summit. And we are pleased to be presenting perspectives on investors and entrepreneurs and people really on the cutting edge of innovation in the longevity market. So we have been doing this for 17 years. And we have assembled a great list of investors who are actually active right now, even in the time of COVID, making investments. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mika to tell us the story of XCures.
Sure. Well, Mary, thank you. Alex, thank you. It's certainly a pleasure to be here with you both. Let me tell you, or the audience here, just a little bit about my background and how I came to work at XCures. So I've spent 22 years in the life sciences, always at the intersection of data science and healthcare, or data science and basic science. Really the first 10 years were focused on chemistry, biology, proteomics, genomics. And then the last 10 years focused on things like market access and guideline development. What happened to me over this course of the period is I spent a lot of time working with big pharmaceutical companies and medical societies and even public health institutions. And it just made me realize how important healthcare is to each of us personally. That was really driven home to me by the experience of losing my father to a complication related to bladder cancer, and then my mom's diagnosis with advanced stage lymphoma. It made me realize just how personal and devastating advanced cancer could be. And through that process, then I ended up meeting the founding team at XCures and coming on to become its CEO in January of 2019. So I think the important thing to understand about XCures and what we're trying to do is that the advanced cancer marketplace itself is an enormous global industry. So it's a $200 billion a year industry with $100 billion in drug revenues coming from the United States. What that means is that every day that drugs are delayed in getting to market, really accounts for millions of lost dollars and lost lives, both for the companies being unable to commercialize their products, as well as the patients who need those products to potentially survive. Clinical trials have traditionally been the only way to get data to support advancing these new products, but that changed over the last 2 years. And the Food and Drug Administration in the United States introduced a new concept around the collection of real-world data and real-world evidence to support both the development as well as understanding the safety of new drugs. So at XCures, we've developed a technology platform to run a new type of study. And we're thinking of this broadly as a compassionate study. So we capture real-world evidence from the patients or advanced cancer patients who are not able to access clinical trials. So these patients who can or don't access the trial, whether it be through screen failure or geographic disparity, are actually wonderful sources and opportunities to create prospective real-world evidence to support the advancement and understanding of these new products. We use a regulatory mechanism called expanded access. I think most of us know it as compassionate use. that's been around for quite a while. The FDA promotes it now as a viable alternative for patients who can't get into studies. And this is a way that patients and their doctors can get access to investigational medicines. The pharmaceutical industry pays extras for access to this real-world evidence. So why is this important? Well, frankly, advanced cancer kills. It's terrible. And when you find out that you or one of your loved ones has advanced cancer, you immediately think of two things. Number one, what are the options for treating it and how can you get access to them? You're generally told in the guidelines, say, participate in clinical trials and at the same time put your affairs in order. But unfortunately, you'll find out for the most part that only 1 in 20 people is able to participate in a clinical trial. And frankly, most physicians can't track the 700 plus products that are in development today. So for the patients, XCures helps match them with an information library that contains treatment options, rationales, why you would treat someone for that, and information about how to access them. And patients pay us with their medical records. So we operate an exchange for patients to get access to novel investigational therapies. They pay for those services with their medical record, and we're then able to commercialize those back to the pharmaceutical industry. I'm often asked, does this work? And I'll show you some examples here in a minute, but our very first program, we believe we accelerated the development of a novel brain cancer therapy by up to 18 months. And we're now launching our second program, which will provide access to patients with pancreatic, ovarian, colon, and lung cancer, among others, who otherwise wouldn't get into the clinical trial for this product. So we put hundreds of patients across our platform already. We're generating revenues. We'll do $1 million this year, 4.5 the year after. And then we take an upside position. So in addition to the base revenues, we also take a success-based position for the products. And we've accumulated, I think, over $12 million to date in contract value. Our team's very cross-disciplinary: AI, technology, pharmaceutical industry, precision medicine. Our advisors are leading oncologists, a MacArthur Fellow, Secretary of Science and Innovation for Oklahoma, and others. So why don't I show you all just a few kind of quick, a little bit of quick input here on what we're doing overall. Let's go ahead and take a look here. So I think one of the things that really hits home to me often is that this marketplace is 600,000 people who have advanced cancer every year, and they can't participate in the trials, and real-world evidence may be the only way to learn from these individuals. And it's not just adults, it's children. This young lady, Ariana, has a very rare form of brain cancer, and frankly, she was able to participate in this program and get access to an investigational drug that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to get access to. So going back to how it works, there are basically 3 important elements to the platform. One is treatment selection. So this idea of what is the right thing to do and how might I possibly be able to treat my disease. And that's one set of the technology platform. On the other side of that is access, because it's one thing to know what to do. It's a completely different thing. I think we've all experienced this in the healthcare system, to actually get it, to achieve the result of being on that therapy. And we always think that something is not truly an option unless there's access. And in the flip way, something that you have access to might actually make it a more exciting option. And then underlying that, of course, is the required regulatory grade technology. So our ability to capture data from patients when they give it to us. And by the way, this comes in PDF or fax, and turn it into structured data that can then be submitted to the Food and Drug Administration is critical. So we've been doing this by partnering with advocacy organizations, Cancer Commons, which is a nonprofit we spun out of, Masella Foundation, et cetera, and then connecting the individuals who are coming in through those advocacy organizations directly to the drug companies and precision oncology companies that are willing to make their products available on our platform. And then using this information and evidence exchange to really drive a pretty novel market. Financially, for our pharma partners, they have a new form of study. It costs them on the order of, let's call it about $1 million to $1.5 million a year to participate. This is much less than it would cost to run a traditional clinical trial. And interestingly, when you look at the overall addressable market that this opens up, it ranges, depending on the assumption you use, from $4 billion to $21 billion alone. So as I always tell people, this is an enormous market segment. Our competition is out there, right? So CancerLink is run by ASCO. Flatiron has been in the news for all. These are all folks who are retrospectively scraping the data from patients in the background. And there's another vanguard of companies now emerging, of which XCures is one. We are prospectively, actively going out to create the evidence needed to advance the development of these drugs. As I've said a little bit earlier, it took really a diverse team to bring all of this together. Leaders across pharmaceutical industry, AI, technology, precision medicine and oncology. And then we have a great scientific advisory board with leading oncologists and an advisory board that includes, as I mentioned, a MacArthur Fellow and just business experience, decades of business experience in the healthcare startup landscape. So with that, I think I'll stop. And maybe Mary, if you have additional questions, or Alex, I'd be happy to go on.
Let me ask you, who would be your ideal set of investors at this stage of the business?
So we did a $5 million seed round originally, and we converted that with a post-money of 11. That was primarily composed of some early institutional investors, and then really family offices and individual investors. And I think that as we continue to develop the company, and now we're looking to really run our financing to support operations through the end of 2021 as we all come out of this, unprecedented time during the pandemic. I really think the right people are impact investors. So these are people who recognize certainly what I recognized in the market, which is there is an opportunity to do incredibly well, to make a lot of money by doing incredible good. And I think you have to see that intersection to really appreciate what we're trying to do at XCures. And I really feel like those people who have experienced the impact that cancer can have either in their lives or in the lives of their loved ones, and then realize how dysfunctional the current system is in terms of helping the patient, but recognize that's not a dysfunction to be tackled necessarily just through philanthropy, right? It's actually an opportunity from a business perspective. And I really think that's where the intersection is.
So one of the encouraging signs, and I recommend to everyone that they go listen to the conversations on the platform about investing priorities, is that people are actively investing right now. So Flare Capital has been making active investments, Portfolio, and there's a lot of interest in healthcare. As people are not commuting and they're at home, they're beginning to pay attention to their health. Those elective procedures and screening procedures that have been put on the back burner because of COVID are beginning to get on everyone's agenda again in the fall. There's also pharmaceutical interest in this space. So would you be open to a strategic investor in the pharma space?
Yeah, we've talked to a number of strategics actually, and they range from pharmaceutical companies to actually to payers, which is pretty interesting. And when I say payers, I mean that in the broad sense that there's the insurance companies, but then there's also the employers. So at the end of the day, the issue is with cancer in particular is, in reality, it affects a small number of people, but it's devastating when it does, and it's incredibly expensive. I mean, just incredibly expensive. It's one of the leading causes of bankruptcy for many families that experience.
Right. And also for the government, because Medicare is paying a lot of this if it's not detected early. When we did our competition this year, we had plans come in from 60 finalists and 6 countries. And recently, I've been hearing from family offices in Asia saying that they're interested in the longevity market. So I think your notion of social impact investors and family offices is sort of a rich area. And the other thing that people are spending time on is their wealth management. And a lot of time, as people have accrued wealth, they're looking for good things to do with that. So I'm assuming you'd be open to high net worth angel investors as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In fact, when we look at the family offices and the high net worth individuals, I think those investors who understand the immediate impact this can have, and again, I always try to kind of personalize some of this. When I think about what am I going to need one day, right? What is my family going to need one day? And can I be in a business that's a great business, right? But that can actually pay back even to myself and my loved ones? That's what got me really excited about it. I mean, I think that was a big part of my experience, Mary, right? Which was, you go along and it's wonderful to help drug companies, develop or commercialize new drugs, or even to work with the government on like a policy program. But it really hits home when it becomes personal, when you're using that program, when you're or your loved ones are the ones who are going to take advantage of the system. And I've certainly always believed that those types of businesses are the ones that are going to.
Well, so the boomers at the top end are 74 in Europe, in Asia, in Canada, in the US.
Mhm.
And, in your 70s and 80s and 90s, many of them are dealing with parents who may have prostate cancer. I think 1 in 3 people in their late 80s or 90s have prostate cancer. And they're going to be, these are the most well-educated group of older adults. And so they're going to look globally to find the right solutions, the right universities. And I think in some ways, the marrying together of the size of the market for the disease and the knowledge and ability of people to use online resources and to find the best answer for their loved one. In a way, we've all gathered a little more time in our life when we're not traveling as much. And in that traveling and thinking through what to do with the rest of our life, we want to do something meaningful. And so it seems to me that you have the right idea at the right time, and there should be a lot of interest in it.
Well, thank you, Mary. I couldn't have said it better myself. I really, really appreciate it.
I know a friend of mine is Susan Love. I met her years ago, and she wrote the book on breast cancer. And I remember how important that book is and has been so useful to so many people. And also Mike Milken of the Milken Institute has sponsored a lot of really important work in the longevity market, as well as he himself suffered prostate cancer. And when he did, I had lunch with him right when this was going on. He traveled around and looked at gardens from around the world and created some beautiful gardens. And then he worked with a chef who created a cookbook that had great nutritional recipes. So as soon as we see a health diagnosis, whether it's diabetes or it's a cancer scare, we want to do everything within our power to eat better, to exercise more, to live a healthier life. And so, but we also want to solve to the best when it's our loved ones, right? Or ourselves. So anything we can do to advance this cause. And I was surprised when you talked about, has everyone says, well, maybe I get a clinical trial. Well, it's not so easy to get into a clinical trial, is it?
No, it's only about 1 in 20 people who try to participate, right? It's not even everybody. And if you realize that the other 19 out of 20 people, just because you can't get into the study doesn't mean that that's not the best drug for you. It just means there's restrictions that were placed on the study, often for financial or commercial reasons or even development reasons related to the product, just may exclude you from that, but that may be your best shot at surviving. And so what we figured out, and it took a while to do this, is in order to unlock that problem, what we had to do was find a way to create regulatory grade, so FDA usable data from that instance. So now instead of being a program of largesse, let's say for a pharmaceutical company to give you access to that drug, it could actually be something that's valuable to them. So it's finding joint value in these situations,
right.
And then understanding how to make that work that really unlocked the market for us.
I mean, it's such an unusual time. I think about the strategy we all have to apply to our businesses. And I think there's 30 million people in a hallway right now looking for jobs. I was joking that I thought I was becoming influential on LinkedIn, but really I think it's people looking for positions because there's a vast number for every slot open. But I also think people are digging deeper and to find out what kind of position, what kind of company, what's worthy of their time in the next phase. And certainly I think your business has a vision that's the right vision at the right time. So I guess I take you back to Alex and say thank you for the introduction. We're going to do everything to make this connection grow, and hopefully we'll see your business grow and watch it in the next years to come. So welcome to the community.
Thank you, Mary.
I wish I could take you upstairs and meet everyone, but it's all virtual now. So we'll be doing some introductions. So over to you, Alex, in New York.
Very dynamic conversation. So functionally, Vision is here to support crisp, efficient meetings so we can all determine how to casually join the XCures ecosystem, benefit from the platform, invest into the platform. My only, having been around triple bottom line businesses, my only comments are rarely and uniquely, you get a few ventures that truly have an alignment between the more that they drive the market opportunity and get good returns, exceptional returns for their investors, the more they can capitalize and accelerate the mission. And we've seen this in a few sectors. I've seen it in a few in particular, but this clearly is that. And I think relative to maybe a new biotech venture, which if it succeeds also has a great win-win opportunity, but there's a significant risk profile. I think we can all see that there is a platform to be built like XCures, and they're well on their way, and that's some very novel reinventions that patients can actually contribute value through their data and earn value and contribute value. So a lot of innovation in how this is truly an exemplary triple bottom line venture, and investors do not be confused that you can both get your cake and eat it too with impact and getting great returns on your investment. So thank you both, and look forward to accessing into the Longevity Summit community.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, I think we did it.
Good. Love it.